Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom, that's better. So welcome to Adith Emanuel on this Shabbat morning, as well as those of you who are joining us from afar. And if you've not yet put on your talit, I invite you to turn to page 289, as we read together in the middle of the page. Bless Adonai, O my soul, Adonai, my God, how great you are. You are robed in glory and majesty, wrapping yourself in light as in a garment, spreading forth the heavens like a curtain. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav, b'tzivanu lehita atef b'tzitzit. And we continue on page 288 as we give thanks to God for being awake, breathing this morning. Modani lefanecha, melech chai v'kayam, shehechezarta Nishmati bechem la Rabba emunatecha. As we continue on page 290 in the brackets. Matovu O halecha Yaakov vishkenotecha Yisrael ma tovu O halecha Yaakov vishkenotecha Yisrael Va'ani berov chastecha avo beitecha Eshtachave el heichal kodshecha behiratecha. As we continue on page 292, page 292.
The soul that you have given me, O God, is pure. You created and formed it, breathed it into me, and within me you sustain it. So long as I have breath, therefore, I will give thanks to you, my God and the God of all ages, source of all being, loving guide of every human spirit.
Baruch atah Adonai, asher biado nefesh kol chai, v'ruach kol besar ish. And as we turn now to our Nisim B'chol Yom, our daily miracles, or those things for which we are grateful, I invite you to share something good for which you are grateful that happened perhaps in this past week. It's a new year, do you remember that? Yes, go ahead.
Well, I'm just thankful we were able to share with my grandson's birthday.
Sharing in a 7-year-old grandson's birthday. Nice. A 19-year-old grandchild's birthday. Nice. Anyone else want to share? Yes, Max. So grateful for little things that we shouldn't take for granted, that when we stick that key in, for those of you who still stick the key in the ignition, I actually push a button, that the car turns on, and that for which we are grateful. All right.
You said that, I want to say how grateful I am that Bruce and Karen knew the parents of my 19-year-old. I knew the parents of their 7-year-old, and how blessed we've been together for so many years. We were able to, even from a distance, keep the kids are further to really know what's going on in their lives and to share their
So sharing the family's simchas with them because you've known each other for all these years. 30th birthday. Ooh, nice. And I'm grateful that our cousins who are visiting us this weekend have come just to New Jersey and that you're here as well. So for all these Nisim B'chol Yom, let's join in our prayer. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lasech vivina lahavchin ben yom uven laila. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam pokeach ivrim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam matir asurim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam zokef kefufim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam roka haaretz al hamayim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamechin mitzadei gaver. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam malbish arumim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hanoten laya'if koach. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hama'avir sheina me'enai utnuma me'af apai. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam sha'asani b'tselem Elohim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam sha'asani bat chorin. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam sha'asani Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam ozer Yisrael bigvura. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam oter Yisrael betifaram. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. We continue on page 297 in the brackets, and if the person who has the microphone next could read or pass it along to the person thereafter.
Adonai, our God, make the words of your Torah sweet to us, and to the house of Israel, your people, that we and our children may be lovers of your name and students of your Torah. We praise you, O God, teacher of Torah, to our people Israel.
Baruch atah Adonai, hamlamei Torah le'amo Yisrael. And on the next page, 298.
While the principal reviews and goals come, they are honoring the
As we are able, we rise in body and spirit. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah v'alma divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael ba'agala ובזמן קריב וימרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם לא מהמיה. יתברך יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתהלל ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו לילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דמירם בעלמא וימרו amen. On page 313 we continue. Yai lai lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai lai, yai lai lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai lai. Baruch hu et Adonai hamivorach. Baruch Adonai hamivorach leolam vahed. Ya la la ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 la. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam yotzer or uvorei choshech oseh shalom uvorei et hakol hameir la'aretz v'ladarim aleha barachamim uvtuvo mechadesh b'chol yom tamid ma'aseh v'reshit. Ma rabu ma'asecha Adonai, kulam b'chochma asita, mala ha'aretz kinyanecha, titbarach Adonai Eloheinu, al shevach ma'aseh yadecha, ve'al ma'orei or she'asita yifarucha selah. Or chadash al Tzion tahir, v'nizkechu lanu mehera leoro, baruch atah Adonai. Yotzer HaMeorot. We continue on page 317, 317, if the next person with the microphone would like to lead. Michael, just check to see that it's on, in the on position, and the mute is not on.
O God, inspiration and guide for all, you have spoken in 1,000 tongues for us to hear, in every land and every age. Your children have heard you and imagined you in separate ways, and yet, O God, you are one unifier of humanity. We give thanks for the sages and teachers who bring us understanding of your will. Gratefully recall the lawgivers and prophets, the psalmists and sages of Israel, and joyfully remember that from the dawn of Israel's life, we return to you and find purpose. May the teachings of our ancestors live on in our minds, and their passion for righteousness stir our hearts. Help us to live so that our daily conduct reveals the beauty and wisdom of your truth.
Baruch atah Adonai, habocher b'amo Yisrael b'ahava. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed. May be seated. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha ve'hayu ha'devarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha u'lechtecha b'derech uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha u'kshartam le'ot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot bein einecha u'chtavtam al mezuzot beitecha u'visharecha leman tizgeru va'asitem et kol mitzvotai vitem kedoshim leloechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem lelohim ani Adonai Elohechem. On page 321, if the person who has the microphone next could lead us in this passage.
Sing the song of men and women, join in understanding and respect, the song of God's miracles, and each protected and cherished. A gift for our children and the generation to come, the song of a land once ravished by war, now quiet and content, her soldiers' homes to live no more, the song of a world redeemed, the song of peace.
Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha nehedar b'kodesh, norat tehilo osei felet, norat tehilo osei felet. Shira chadasha shibechu gehulim, l'shimcha sfat hayam, yachad kulam hodu, v'himlichu ve'ameru, Adonai yimlok le'olam va'ed, Adonai yimlok le'olam va'ed. Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la. Tzur Yisrael, kuma be'ezrat Yisrael, uftechinu mecha, Yehuda ve'Yisrael. Go aleinu, Adonai Tsevaot Shemo, Kedosh Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai God Yisrael. As we're able, we rise in body and spirit for tefillah on page 323. Adonai sifatai tifta ufi agi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah. Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei Hakol, V'Zocher Chastei Avot V'Imahot, Umevi Geula Livnei V'neihem, Leman Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshia U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham v'Ezrat Sarah. Atah Gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechaye hakol atah Rab le'Hoshia. Mashiv haruach u'morid hagashem, Mechalkel chayim b'chesed, Mechaye hakol berachamim rabim, Somech noflim verofech cholim, Umatir asurim, Umekayem emunato, Lishenei afar, Michamocha bal gevurot, Umido melach, Melech memit umechayeh, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman atah lehachayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechaye hakol. La 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la la. Nekadesh et shimcha ba'olam, kishem shemakdishim oto bishmei marom, kakatuv al yad niviecha, v'karoz el zevi amar, kadosh, 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 Adonai Tsevaot, Meloch kol haaretz, kevodo, adir adireinu, Adonai Adoneinu, Mahadir Shimcha bechol haaretz, Baruch We continue on page 330 in the brackets with the person who has the microphone next could lead us.
On this Shabbat day, as you graciously receive our prayers, help us to hear your call. Grant us enough health to fulfill our duties and the compassion we need to attend to others. Teach us humility that we may perceive our own faults, and grant us the wisdom to be forgiving of others. Give us the courage to be true to our highest selves and the charity to see the best in those around us. Give us patience enough not to become discouraged, hope enough to overcome all fears for the future, and faith enough to know your presence. O source of blessing, look with favor upon us, and may our offerings be acceptable to you. We praise you, Adonai, whom alone we serve in reverence.
Baruch atah Adonai, she'otcha levadcha b'yir'ah na'avod. We continue at the bottom of page 332. Page 332. Chief.
For the expanding grandeur of creation, worlds known and unknown, galaxies beyond galaxies, filling us with awe and challenging our imaginations.
Modim anachnu lach.
For this fragile planet Earth, its times and tides, its sunsets and seasons.
Modim anachnu lach.
For the joy of human life, its wonders and surprises, its hopes and achievements.
Modim anachnu lach.
For human community, our common past and future hope, our oneness transcending all separation, our capacity to work for peace and justice in the midst of hostility and oppression.
Modim anachnu lach.
For high hopes and noble causes, for faith without fanaticism, for understanding of views not shared.
Modim anachnu lach.
For all who have labored and suffered for a fairer world, who have lived so that others might live in dignity and freedom.
Modim anachnu lach.
For human liberties and sacred rights, for opportunities to change and grow, to affirm and choose.
Modim anachnu lach.
We pray that we may live not by our fears, but by our hopes, not by our words, but by our deeds.
Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha ulechana elehudot. Sim shalom, tova uvracha. Sim shalom, tova uvracha. Sim shalom, tova uvracha. Sim shalom, tova uvracha. Chen v'chesed, chen v'chesed v'rachamim. Chen v'chesed, chen v'chesed v'rachamim. Tova uvracha, sim shalom, tova uvracha. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Amecha. Sim shalom. Tova uvracha. Sim shalom. Tova uvracha. We continue our prayer now silently, whether we are led by the words on the pages in our Siddur through page 337 or other prayers throughout the prayer book, for those meditations and thoughts in our hearts. Adonai tzuri vegoalim. Ose shalom limromav. Hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Ve'al kol Yisrael. Ve'al kol yoshvei tevel ve'imeru. Amen. We turn now in our service to Seder Kriyat HaTorah, and so we turn in our Siddur to page 362 for the reading of the Torah. As we are able, we rise in body and spirit. And Sarah, if you will come with me to help open the ark. Ein kamocha va'Elohim Adonai, ve'ein kemasecha, malchutecha malchut kol olamim, umemshaltecha b'chol dor v'dor. Adonai melech, Adonai malach, Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed. Adonai oz le'amo yitain. Adonai yevarech et amo b'shalom. El harachamim etiva b'rtzoncha et Zion. Tivnei chomot Yerushalayim, ki b'cha levad batachnu, melech el ram v'nisa Adon olamim. Ki mitzion tetzei Torah, ki mitzion tetzei Torah, udevar Adonai Yerushalayim. Baruch Shenatan Torah, Torah. Baruch Shenatan Torah, Torah. Le'amo Yisrael Bigdushato. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Echad Eloheinu Gadol Adonenu Kadosh Shemo Gadol Adonai Iti Uneromema Shemo Yachdav. Lecha Adonai Hagedula v'Hagevura v'Hatiferet v'Hanetzach v'Havod Ki chol b'shamayim u'ba'aretz Ki chol b'shamayim u'ba'aretz Lecha Adonai Hamamlacha v'Amik Naseh Lechol Erosh Al Shlosha Devarim Al Shlosha Devarim Al Shlosha Devarim Ha'olam Ha'olam Omed Al Shlosha Devarim Al Shlosha Devarim Al Shlosha Devarim Ha'olam Ha'olam Omed. It's a first Shabbat of 2014, and it's the first Torah portion of Exodus, of the book of Shemot, and we're delighted that Larry is celebrating his whatever anniversary of his bar mitzvah and is going to be second anniversary of his bar mitzvah. You know what? People become b'nai mitzvah as adults, so we could have been last year, but it was before last year, some time ago, and he will be our Baal Koreh, our Torah reader this morning. So Larry, come on up, and he's going to be reading the following verses in our portion from Exodus chapter 2, verse 16 and following. Exodus chapter 2, 16 and following. And if you'd like to follow along in the Plaut Chumash, they are in the large books in front of you. We will be on page 389. Page 389.
Special leave for anyone?
Is there somebody who would like the honor of the Aliyah this morning? The Aliyah? Okay, Danny, come on up. Either way. And your Hebrew name is?
Yehuda ben Carmela ve'Aaron.
Na la'amod Yehuda ben Carmela ve'Aaron levarech ala Torah.
Baruch et Adonai hambarach.
Baruch Adonai hambarach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai hambarach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Kohen Midyan Shevat Banot V'tavona V'talena V'tamalena Et Haroitim Lishkot Zon Avihen V'yavu Haroim V'yashum Vayakam Moshe Vayoshian Vayash et Hatzonam V'tavono el Eruel Avihen Vayomer Madua Meroten Vohayom Vatomarno Ish Mitri Hitzilanu Miyad Haroim V'gam Dalalanu Vayash et Hatzon Vayomer el ben Atav Vayo Lama Zeh Azavten Het Aish Kiren Lo Yochal Lachem Yoel Moshe Leshevet et Aish Vayiten et Zipporah Vito LeMoshe.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nata b'chotenu Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Asher koach.
Do you want to stay here? Because then we'll finish it up, and then we'll give Torah afterward. Okay. We turn our thoughts and prayers now to those who are in need of healing. And if you're joining us through the blessing of technology and you're thinking of those who are in need of healing, I invite you to add those names add those names to the chat at this time. We're praying for healing body, mind, and spirit for the following people in our extended Adith Emmanuel family: Gila Bat Zvi Zelda, Carol Levine, Judy Winogren, Bob Epifano, Marlene Kaplan, Meredith Gelman, Marion Portnoy, Carrie Amariello, Malcolm Fletcher, Ellen Bertuglia, Goldie Schultz, Mindy Fisher, Kayla Khana Bat Adan Leib Umasalea, Marlene Gratchner, Sarah Gardner, Cindy DiRicio, Harry Greenberg, Nick Bod, Debbie Nielsen, Moshe Ben Elizabeth Theodore, Rosalie Middleman, Jennifer Ness, George Goldstein, Harriet Eisner, Carla Teisch, Linda Drachman, Chaim Ben David, Eileen Davison, Craig Davison, Hugh Morton, Art Bond, Roberta Levine, Jordan Steinberg, Lisa Galda, Ed Crosby, Myra Kaplan, Jeff Schaefer, Louis Alahut, Carol Schaefer, Mary Mednitsky, Jocelyn Jackson, Jen Jones, Michael Infante, Gary Garnick, Rick Ulrich, Ileana Cohn. And if there are other names that you would like to mention aloud for those who are here in the sanctuary in person, please feel free to state those names as my hand passes through the congregation.
Rona and David Glesman, Lois and Marie Moskowitz.
David Ross, Roger Grossman, Joel Grossman, Aaron Woods, David Twitch,
Caroline Gold, Rabbi Neil Woodson, and Dr. Owen Woodson.
Baruch atah Adonai, Rofei HaCholim. We're on page 371 in the middle of the page. Mishebeirach Avotenu Mekor HaBaracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misheberach imotenu mekor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shalema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. As we're able, we rise as we lift and dress Torah. You'll be able to see where the book of Shemot begins. V'zot haTorah asher sam Moshe, v'zot haTorah, v'zot haTorah asher sam Moshe, v'zot haTorah, lifnei b'nei Yisrael, v'zot haTorah. Al pi Adonai b'yad Moshe, v'zot haTorah, v'zot haTorah asher sam Moshe, v'zot haTorah, v'zot haTorah asher sam Moshe, v'zot haTorah, lifnei b'nei Yisrael, v'zot haTorah, al pi Adonai b'yad Moshe, v'zot haTorah, v'zot haTorah asher sam Moshe, v'zot haTorah. We turn now to this morning's Haftarah, which we can find in the book of Isaiah, and it is on page 692, Isaiah chapter 27, verse 6 and following. And who will be reading our Haftarah, Sam, this morning? And we start first with the blessings. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'nvi'im tovim v'ratza v'divreihem hanemarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai habocher batorah uv'Moshe avdo uv'Yisrael amo uv'invi'ei ha'emet v'tzedek.
In days to come, Jacob shall strike root, Israel shall sprout and blossom, and the face of the world shall be covered with fruit. Was he beaten as his beater has been? Did he suffer such slaughter as his slayers? Assailing them with fury unchained, his pitiless blast bore them off on a day of gale. Assuredly, by this alone shall Jacob's sin be purged away. This is the only price for removing his guilt. that he make all the altar stones like shattered blocks of chalk, with no sacred post left standing, nor any incense altar. Thus fortified cities lie desolate, homesteads deserted, forsaken like a wilderness. There calves graze, there they lie down and consume its boughs. When its crown is withered, they break. Women come and make fires with them, for they are a people without understanding. That is why their Maker will show them no mercy. Their Creator will deny them grace. And in that day the Lord will beat out the peoples like grain from the channel of the Euphrates to the Wadi of Egypt, and you shall be picked up one by one, O children of Israel. And in that day a great ram's horn shall be sounded, and the strayed who are in the land of Assyria, and the expelled who are in the land of Egypt, shall come and worship the Lord on the holy mount in Jerusalem. Ah, the proud crowns of the drunkards of Ephraim, whose glorious beauty is but wilted flowers on the heads of men bloated with rich food, who are overcome by wine. Lo, my Lord, has something strong and mighty, like a storm of hail, a shower of pestilence, something like a storm of massive torrential rain, shall be hurled with force to the ground. Trampled underfoot shall be the proud crowns of the drunkards of Ephraim, the wilted flowers on the heads of men bloated with rich food, that are his glorious beauty. They shall be like an early fig before the fruit harvest. Whoever sees it devours it while it is still in his hand. In that day the Lord of hosts shall become a crown of beauty and a diadem of glory for the remnant of his people, and a spirit of judgment for him who sits in judgment, and of valor for those who repel attacks at the gate. But these are also muddled by wine and dazed by liquor. Priest and prophet are muddled by liquor, and they are confused by wine. They are dazed by liquor. They are muddled in their visions. They stumble in judgment. Yea, all tables are covered with vomit and filth, so that no space is left. To whom would he give instruction? To whom expound the message? Those newly weaned from milk, just taken away from the breast, that same mutter upon mutter, murmur upon murmur, now here, now there. Truly is one who speaks to that people in a stammering jargon of an alien tongue, is he who declares to them, this is the resting place. Let the weary rest. This is the place of repose. They refuse to listen. To them the word of the Lord is mutter upon mutter, murmur upon murmur, now here, now there, and so they will march, but they shall fall backward and be injured and snared and captured. Assuredly, thus said the Lord to the house of Jacob, who redeemed Abraham. No more shall Jacob be shamed, no longer his face grow pale. For when he, that is his children, behold what my hands have wrought in his midst, they will hallow my name. Men will hallow the Holy One of Jacob, and stand in awe of the God of Israel.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam tzur kol haolamim tzadik bechol hadorot ha'el ha'ne'eman ha'omer v'oseh hamdaber u'mkayem shekol devarav emet v'tzedek al ha'torah v'al ha'avodah v'al hanvi'im v'al yom ha'shabbat hazeh shenatata lanu Adonai Eloheinu likdusha v'limnucha lechavod ultifaret al hakol Adonai Eloheinu anachnu modim lach umvarchim otach yitbarach shimcha b'fi kol chai Tamid le'olam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. So Yasher Koach, Larry, on your Torah reading this morning. I was looking through the Torah portion this morning, which is just, the Torah portion for the Shabbat, which is just so huge. We've transitioned from Genesis, the families, the individuals, and now we're getting introduced to Moses and what will become the Exodus from Egypt. And so there's just so many places, and this particular Shabbat I focused on a few verses, a chapter and a few verses after what you read this morning. And so I think about, maybe people didn't know this. Did you know that when God chose Moses to be the leader, to lead the Israelites out of Egypt, that Moses did not want the job at first? Yes, because you've read the story. Spoiler alert, he didn't want the job at first. And so God says to Moses, or tells him, or commands him, and it's multiple times that Moses tries to get out of it. And that is typical of a prophet. We see that as a repeated behavior. And sometimes we call Moshe Rabbeinu, right? Moses our teacher. But Moses is also referred to at the end of the Torah as no greater prophet was known. And so what is a prophet's job? A prophet's job is to be the mouthpiece for God, but also a leader. So I thought it might be interesting to look at some of Moses' response when God calls him to lead the people out of Egypt. So this is in chapter 3, and verse 10, God says, "Come therefore, I will send you to Pharaoh, and you shall free my people, the Israelites, from Egypt." And Moses' response to God is, "But who am I? Who am I? Mi anochi, that I should go to Pharaoh and free the Israelites from Egypt." Rashi, the 11th century French commentator, is interpreting this when Moses is saying, "Mi anochi," is that Moses was comparing himself to the monarchy of a Pharaoh. Like, who am I that I'm going to go before Pharaoh? It's not like I'm a governor or anything like that. But God assures Moses that God will be with him and that the people will listen to him and that the Egyptians will comply. Moses is still not convinced and asks God, well, what if they, the Israelites, what if they do not believe me and do not listen to me, but say, God did not appear to you? So then God reassures Moses by showing Moses the miracles. Now this, we often think of the miracles, the signs of the 10 plagues, and we think of the miracles as appearing when Moses first goes to Pharaoh, but we have these miracles that's in a little bit of a private conversation with God and Moses, so that Moses can be convinced that God is for real and God is going to be with him and this can happen. So first, God says to Moses, what's that in your hand? And he says, a rod or a staff. And then the trick is, or the miracle is, throw it on the ground, it turns to a snake, and then grab the snake, voila, it's back to the rod or back to the staff. The second one, and then we see that happen later, right? When Moses appears before Pharaoh and his magicians. And then the second one, God says to Moses, is put your hand in your bosom and take it out, and it's scaly. And then put it back, and it comes out like the rest of the normal skin. And we see that God, you might remember in the book of Numbers, when Miriam and Aaron are challenging Moses' leadership, and they're speaking ill about him, and God inflicts the same kind of what we often translate as leprosy, that scaly affection. So that ends up happening later. And then the third one is God says to Moses, and if they don't believe you after the first one and the second one, they're going to believe you after this one. And take a little bit of the water from the Nile and pour it on the ground, and it's going to turn to blood. Right. And then we see that one later that becomes what we call the first plague. Right. And so God says, if they don't believe you after the first and second, they're going to believe you after the third. And Moses is still reluctant. So Moses says, God, please, I have never been a man of words, either in times past or now that you have spoken to your servant. I am slow of speech and slow of tongue. So this has been an interpretation that Moses had a stutter or some kind of speech impediment. And what was that? People wanted to know, the commentators, where did that come from? And there's a story, there's midrashim, and there are different versions of this. You might have heard this. So when Moses was a baby, right, so Moses was drawn out of the Nile by Pharaoh's daughter and brought into the castle and is before, or the palace, and is living amongst the royalty. And Moses is sitting on Pharaoh's lap. Moses grabs Pharaoh's crown and puts it on his own head, and how cute for the baby, and everybody's laughing, and one advisor's like, don't, that's not so funny, watch out. And they're like, okay, well, let's devise this test, and we'll see if this child is really after your job or not. And so the next day, they put Moses at one end, maybe on the table, and at the other end there are two silver bowls, and in one bowl are hot stones or coals, and on the other side there are bright, shiny jewels. And so as the baby crawls across the table to the bowls and reaches them, which one is the baby going to reach for first? Well, the Midrash teaches that Moses was about to reach for the jewels, and therefore the angel, I think it's Gabriel, guides Moses' hand to the coals, pulls it out before he realizes it's too hot on his hand, puts it to his mouth like babies, they take things and they put them in their mouth to tease, and ends up burning his lips and drops the coal, and that is what brought about Moses' speech impediment. But were it not for the angel that guided him that way, because had he reached for the jewels, they might have gotten rid of him at that young age. So that's where Moses is supposedly, we have Midrash that creates it, where he got his speech impediment. So that's what Moses says. God, I'm slow of tongue, I'm slow of speech. And God says, who gave human speech? Was it not I, right? So God tells Moses, I will be with you and I will instruct you what to say. And Moses responds in the next verse, please, my eternal God, make someone else your agent. Moses really doesn't want this job. And then God gets angry and tells Moses that, don't worry, Aaron, who's your brother, he speaks well. You tell him the words and he will speak. And God I will be there for you both, and I'll tell you both what to do. And these steps of reluctance and convincing are a pattern we see in other prophets. There's this reluctance, this not me, I can't speak so well, or I don't know what to say, and God convinces these prophets that God will put the words in the mouth of the person, of the prophet, to relay the message. And we can think of, I think, one that's very familiar to us is the prophet of Jonah, right? So reluctant that he goes in the other direction from where God told him to go, and eventually comes around. These prophets come around. Jeremiah is another example of this prophet in Amos, where God says, go, and they don't want to. Don't worry, I'll tell you the words to speak, and eventually they come around. So this was not a popular job, but there's a question. The questions I'm thinking about specifically regarding Moses is, why is he responding this way? Is Moses humble? Sometimes we talk about Moses being the most humble person in the Torah. Even the book of Leviticus begins in Hebrew Vayikra, and the last letter in Hebrew of the word Vayikra is a small aleph. It's God's calling to Moses, and that small aleph is symbolic of Moses' humility. So is Moses humble? Does he lack confidence? Does he have low self-esteem? Or is it something else? And is there a difference between humility, lack of confidence, low self-esteem? And so that's in the context of the Torah, and I always try to bring it to our world today, is in today's world, what does it take to have confidence? Can you be humble and confident? And might we cite examples? So those are some of our thoughts for our discussion, and I invite anyone to chime in. Why do you think Moses responded this way? Lacking confidence, low esteem, humility, and can you be humble and confident at the same time? And I would ask, do you want to start, or do somebody have a response? Go, did you have something?
Well, I took the person early on where he's a wanderer because he's killed the Egyptian and he must flee. But it also had a connection, as some do, to the earlier thing of the well for Rebecca, and I like that too. But it's, in terms of his humility, I mean, he's not so proud that he can't help his fellow men, in this case, women. But he shows kindness to them and generosity, getting them water and helping them.
Oh, you're thinking at the well?
Yes.
So that was, are you thinking about Rebecca? So that was
Rebecca,
Jacob
yeah.
at the well.
With Eliezer,
Okay,
servant,
right, with
earlier
Jacob.
in Genesis.
Okay, so that's an example of Jacob having confidence. Is that what you're giving the example? Because you said he, I didn't know which he you meant.
Yes.
Okay.
I think he has the confidence that he can help without being overbearing.
Okay, so that's a good example of,
And helping in terms of, we talked today about the word I'm trying to think of, where someone's picked on and like what?
bullied.
Bullying. And it tends the shepherds were bullying the women.
Right, and Jacob had the confidence, but he was also humble.
But Moses helped them.
No, so that was Jacob.
Yeah, Jacob.
Jacob.
Moses helped the women of Midian.
Oh, you're talking, okay, and when Moses, okay, got it. I thought you were talking about, I thought you said something about Rebecca, so. Oh yeah, both stories, yeah, the same thing at that time. Okay. Other examples or thoughts related to confidence, low esteem, humility, you can tell you're thinking.
There's a fine line between confidence and ego. And a lot of leaders are leaders only because of their ego, and they're able to bully people into believing their way. That was, though, not Moses. He had no ego. I think he had more of a fear of obviously not being good enough, but also a fear of failing, as a lot of people do who have a lack of confidence. A lot of them do succeed, though, and Moses is a good example of someone who, I guess, was pushed into a situation and did succeed in that position. Yes, he had failures along the way, and that was one of the reasons why he couldn't enter the promised land, but failures are also the way we learn. And I think he showed the strength, but he was also good at taking instructions from God. When God told him to stop being the only person that people would come to and share being leadership, it seemed like he took a deep breath, a sigh, thank goodness. So he was able to bend and move forward, but he didn't think a lot of it himself. He was not the leader, he was the voice of the leader. And I think that puts it in a little bit of a different perspective of whether there was confidence or not.
Thank you for that. It reminds me, your comment about he wasn't the leader, he was the voice of the leader. In a traditional Haggadah, do you know how many times Moses' name is mentioned? 0. Because it's all who brought the Israelites, we always attribute it to God. And so Moses wasn't we're talking about Moses being the leader in this context now, but thank you for that. I saw a couple hands. Okay.
I like the concept of humility as being right-sized. There's a prayer in our book that says, I need humility to assess my own worth. We don't want to over-assess our worth, that's ego. But we don't want to under-assess our worth either, because then we're not stepping up and using our gifts, whatever they are, to help our community. So in that way, I think appropriate humility and confidence in a way go hand in hand, because humility is what allows us to realistically assess ourselves, our strengths and our flaws. And we have to understand what our flaws are if we want to improve them. So.
Right, sometimes our society teaches us humility as you have to be humble, but it's you've heard the expression a humble brag, right? That's not really humble at all, right? But humility is in a self-check. That's really, because we have the humble brag, that's a brag, and not really humility. And then we also have the humility where we beat ourselves down, which is also not a place where we want to be. Thank you. Self-awareness and not humility. Okay.
I was going to say on a more modern level, it kind of brings the believing in your friends or believing in other people when they don't believe in themselves yet. Kind of God did with Moses. And at the end of the parsha it says that God said, you shall soon see what I will do to Pharaoh, shall let them go because of a greater might. And that greater might is God, but through Moses helping him.
So I'm just going to highlight that one comment you said about the way God had faith in Moses. We as human beings can do that for other people who are around us. We can express or support them and show that we have faith in them that can help boost their confidence, the way God boosted Moses' confidence. Were you going to share something, Ivan?
I was going to try and be quiet. No, I've thought about it a lot of times. As a matter of fact, I don't accept that Moses had an impairment of speech. I read the same translation. I can't put a new meaning to the Hebrew words. I don't know that much. But when he is slow of speech, and so I don't know that that means, it may mean he ain't smart. That's what we would say.
So maybe slow of, for when Moses says slow of tongue and slow of speech, in his mind he's saying, I'm not so smart.
Yeah, I'm really slow on the trigger. I can't do this. You know, it makes me wonder what makes people great. We don't really understand what makes people great. And it's something.
Can you speak in the microphone because I'm not hearing you? The microphone, yes. Yeah, it's working.
It's sometimes just that the belief is so strong that they cannot be swayed from that path. And God recognizes those people in the Torah, one after the other. They're not always the smartest in the world, but they have a belief. Moses looks in that bush. He has no question in his mind. He's talking to God. He's talking to somebody. It's very important. The idea is never swerve. He is on the path. He's going to this other place that God took him out of. And sometimes it's not always personality and bombast is in Hal said most of it already. He really is right on the same track as I am. But God has a way of picking out the right man for the right job. He picked out a very modest but dedicated guy.
So God has a way of picking out the right people, and piggybacking what Hal said earlier. It's I think one thing that draws us to the Bible and the Torah. Did you want to give a comment? Okay. Anybody else? Is the human nature of our biblical characters, that they are not perfect. They are flawed, if we want to call them flaws, or they're just part of who they are. And God had the confidence in Moses, even though Moses says, I can't do this, or I have a slow tongue, or whatever it is, that God had the faith in Moses that he could do it. I want to share with you a story about the Chofetz Chaim, who was once traveling by train to a Jewish community to give a lecture. Now, he was this famous scholar, and this man now you have to remember this was probably back in the time before, you saw everybody's picture on the announcement, and you couldn't just Google them and see their. So a man sits down next to the Chofetz Chaim in the train during the trip and starts a conversation, and when the Chofetz Chaim asked where he was headed, the man replied, I'm going into town to hear the Chofetz Chaim speak. He is the greatest tzaddik in the Jewish world today. And the Chofetz Chaim hears this about himself, that he's the greatest tzaddik, and he is a little bit embarrassed by what he's hearing. And so he responds as, people exaggerate his greatness. I know him well, and he's not that great. So the man who starts the conversation says to the Chofetz Chaim, well, he was infuriated by this response, and he was so angry he slapped the Chofetz Chaim in the face. And of course the train stops, and later that night, the man is horrified when he goes to the lecture, and who's giving the lecture? It's the guy he slapped. Oh my gosh. And so as soon as the lecture is over, the man runs up to the Chofetz Chaim and he pleads for forgiveness. Please, please forgive me. And the Chofetz Chaim smiles and said, there's no need for forgiveness. You were defending me. In fact, you taught me a great lesson. My whole life, I've been teaching people not to defame others. Now I've learned that it's also wrong to defame myself. And Maimonides has always talked about having balance in everything. So maybe it is about self-awareness and having that balance between what we might call humility and ego, and finding that balance in the right place. And so that is our goal. Finding that balance and remembering not only not to defame others, but not to defame ourselves. Shabbat Shalom. We turn now to page 374. Page 374. As we're able, we rise for Alenu. Would you like to lead us in Alenu? Larry? We're going to return the Torah first, 374. Eitz chaim hi lemachazikim ba v'tomchecha meushar deracheha darchei noam v'chol netivoteha shalom hashivenu Adonai elecha v'nashuva chadesh chadesh yameinu kekedem. We continue on page 586 at the bottom of the page for Alenu.
Alenu l'shabech l'adon hakol l'tet gedula yotzer b'reshit shelo asanu k'yei haratzot v'lo samanu k'mizbechot ha'adama shelo sam chelkenu kahem v'gahor aleinu kifo hamonam v'anachnu korim u'mistachavim u'modim Lifnei melech malchei hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu v'ne'emar v'haya Adonai lamelech al kol haaretz hayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shema echad.
And we turn our thoughts and prayers now to those who are no longer with us, and so we turn to pages 598 and 599 as we think of our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us during this period of Shiva and Shloshim. We recall the memories of Dr. George Flam, our member, Ronald Joseph Tungold, brother of Diane Magrum, Ann Marsden, also our member, as well as those who died of the season in years past, whose yahrzeits we observe on the Shabbat. Paul Antonoff, Louis Aronowitz, Carl Cohen, Anita Einstein, Lana Renee Epstein, Albert Fireman, Ann Garnick, Rose Gilbert, Rebecca Goldman, Robin E. Helfat, Bill Indictor, Sam Kleeman, Sheila Luboff, Richard Plavinsky, Michael Romsberg, Robert Rubenstein, Yossi Stein, Art Weissman, Claire Zeit, and other names we might add at this time. Zichronam Levracha, may their memories be for blessing. Yit Gadal v'Yit Kadash Shemei Rabbah, v'Alma Divrach Yirutei v'Amlich Malchutei, V'chayechon uvyomechon uvchaye dechol Beit Yisrael. Ba'agala uvizvan kari v'imru amen. Yehi shemei rabba mevarach leolam olmei olmaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shemei dekudasha b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbachata v'nechamata. Ta'amiran v'yalma v'yimru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya. V'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. V'yimru amen. Oseh shalom v'imromav. Hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. V'yimru amen. May be seated. Are we sharing? Before we share announcements, we want to say Toda Rabah to Sam, who is the sponsor of our Kiddush and are there any? I have one hoda'ah that this coming Sunday there's the blood drive by the men's club. In addition to it's donate and dine. So donate your blood, and then there's a trip out to Goldie's for brunch to support this restaurant that's been it's been boycotted because it's Israeli owners. So if those of you want to go with the men's club, I think they're meeting and carpooling in the parking lot. Check your emails for that. I think it's somewhere around 12 something, 12:30 maybe. Other hoda'ot to share? And so for our closing song, Ivan, did you have one in mind today? Adon Olam, page 625. We'll do the this one this week. We did this I think 2 weeks ago. Adon Olam Asher Malach B'terem Kol Yitzir Nivra Li'et Nasa V'chapso Kol Azai Malach Shemo Nikra Adon Olam V'yacharei Kichlot Hako Levado Yimlok Nora Adon Olam V'hu Haya V'hu Hoveh V'hu Yeh B'tifara Adon Olam Asher Malach B'terem Kol Yitzir Nivra Li'et Nasa V'chafso Kol Hazai Malach Shemo Nikra Adon Olam. Last verse. B'yado Avkid Ruchi B'eit Ishan V'ya'ira Adon Olam V'im Ruchi Geviyati Adonai Li V'lo Ira Adon Olam Asher Malach B'terem Kol Yitzir Nivra Li'et Nasa V'chafso Kol Azai Malach Shemo Nikra Adon Olam. Shabbat Shalom. And we are all welcome to join in the library for Kiddush and.